What I'm about to share with you today is one of the many relatively safe ways in which you can access, not quite enter, a place I call the shadow side. And its effectiveness depends on how seriously you take me. Your mileage may vary. Refer to title. I won't tell you that you shouldn't be afraid of the shadow side. Chances are you've already seen it after all, and merely think it was just a recurring dream. I will tell you there is no need to be ignorantly afraid of it, though. There is a difference. Ignorance fuels fear, and fear can give that place a lot of juice to run on. You have to be big on preparation if you want to try this. It's like skydiving. If getting it right on your first try is not something you're good at, then this is not for you. If you do drugs or alcohol the night of the event, you're going to have a bad time. If you're going through some serious issues in your life and are not feeling mentally or spiritually stable, or if you're just doing this to escape, you're going to have a bad time. And if you don't follow my instructions, particularly the multiple backups I'll give you, which, trust me, are there for a reason, you're going to have a really bad time. By the way, the name of this game is called The Three Kings. The things you'll need: a very large, empty, and quiet room, preferably one without windows. If windows exist, you need to be able to cover them and ensure total darkness. Basements usually work well if they're roomy enough. A pack of candles, you only use one if all goes well, and a lighter. A bucket of water and a mug. A fan. 2 large mirrors like the one on your dresser. Don't worry, they won't be harmed. Or if they are, it'd be the least of your concerns. 3 chairs. An alarm clock. An active cell phone, and don't forget to charge the goddamn battery. A loved one, willing to follow rules and go along with all this madness. And a small toy or dear object from your childhood. Start setup around 11 p.m. Place 1 chair in the center of the room, facing north. This is important. Place the other 2 chairs exactly to the left and right, facing your throne. The distance between your throne and that of your queen and fool should be about the length of your arm to each side, more or less. Place the 2 large mirrors on the queen and fool chairs left and right of you, facing you and each other. Try your best to have them stand at a 90-degree angle, or else you may get more or less than 3 kings. If you sit on your throne facing straight ahead, north, you should be able to perceive your own reflection in each of the 2 mirrors without actually having to turn your head nor eyes to do so. If you see your own reflection in the corner of your eye, just barely there, then you've done it right. Place the bucket of water and the mug in front of you, just barely out of reach. Place the fan behind you. Turn it on. Don't set it to maximum power. Medium or low is usually enough. Leave it on. Turn off the lights, leave the door open, and go to your bedroom. Set the candles by the side of your bed, next to a lighter, your alarm clock, and your cell phone. Leave it charging. Set your alarm clock for 3:30 a.m. Turn off the lights and sleep while holding your power object. Get some rest. Wake up at 3:30 a.m. with your alarm clock. Turn it off, but don't turn on the light. You have exactly 3 minutes to light your candle, grab your cell phone, and make your way to the dark room and sit in your throne. You should be seated by 3:33 a.m. Don't forget your power object. Check for potential red flags. If your cell phone didn't charge for whatever reason, abort the mission. If the alarm didn't go off at exactly 3:30 a.m., abort the mission. If you find the dark room door closed, remember, you left it open. Abort the mission. If the fan is turned off, you left it on. abort the mission. If you have to abort the mission due to any of the above, leave the house with your loved one. Go to a hotel or something. There's no need to run. You have time to grab a jacket and your keys and whatnot, but leave. After 6 a.m., the coast should be clear. If all is going as planned, you can proceed to take your throne. Do not look directly at either of the 2 mirrors besides you. Do not let the candle go out. The fan is behind you. You must protect the candle with your body, which is standing in between. There's a reason for this, as you'll soon see. Look straight ahead at the darkness, not at the candle, not at the mirrors, just straight ahead. Eagle-eyed readers surely notice I didn't say during setup which chair was queen and which chair was fool. That's because it's your job to find out. And from their point of view, you are either their queen or their fool too. Hence, 3 kings. I won't spoil what happens next. Suffice to say, you won't be alone. And if you have questions, you'll get answers. Sometimes in the form of new questions, but hey, that's the story of humanity. Just stay put and try not to move. Again, do not look directly at the mirrors, nor the candle. Just straight ahead. Trust me. Don't chicken out either. You need to wait until 4:34. By 4:34 a.m., it's all over. It's okay to tremble just a bit. Just try not to. Not because it affects the ritual or anything. It's just a pussy thing to do while in polite company. Did I mention not to let the candle go out? That's what the fan is for. You're protecting the candle with your body, but if your body were to be suddenly moved, then the fan would put out the candle. That's backup number 1. Your loved one is backup number 2. At 4:34, she has to come in the room and call your name. If that won't work, she has to call your cell phone. And if that won't work, she has the glass of water and the bucket. She can't touch you though. That's a newbie mistake. Backup number 3 is your item of power, the toy or locket or whatever object of strength you brought along for the ride. It'll show you the way if shit hits the fan. Multiple backups. You gotta be like a Boy Scout if you do these things. If you half-ass it all the way so that it won't work. Worst you can do is take it seriously enough for it to work and not seriously enough to be prepared for the consequences. If in doubt, refer to title. She had traveled down this road more times than she was willing to count. Surrounded by forest and wildlife, the long, narrow, dusty road offered a safe route from Tara's home to the grocery store where she worked. Underpaid and overworked, Tara had been there for 3 years with no end in sight. 5, sometimes 6 days a week, Tara made the 45-minute walk to her dead-end job, only to return home to her unemployed husband every night. At 16, Tara left her abusive father into the arms of an abusive boyfriend. His words were unkind, his touch was not gentle, yet without a diploma, Tara was left without many options. He promised her stability and a home, and her fear and naivety let her believe him. On her long walks to and from work, she often thought about the last 10 years and the events that resulted in her broken life. The mistakes, the lies, the desperation, all of it led her to him. Tara hated her husband in a way she never knew was possible. The mere thought of him sent nauseated pangs to the pit of her stomach. When the thought of returning home to his drunken embrace became too much, Tara would fantasize about what she felt was her only escape: his death. An electrical fuse short-circuits, engulfing the sleeping drunk to ash. An earthquake demolishes the run-down home, crushing all within. He always died of an accident through no fault of her own, and in the end, she would gracefully be whisked away in the embrace of a kind-hearted rescuer. When her journey came to an end, still smiling, she would turn the doorknob to reality and endure the nightmare that awaited inside. Tara had no idea how profound her seemingly harmless fantasies were, but she was destined to find out. On that long stretch of road, damp from midday showers, Tara walked along the muddied path. She was exceptionally lost in a fantasy involving a hurricane and a sympathetic firefighter, as she tried to ignore the throbbing of her bruised ribs. While she floated in the arms of her fantasized hero, Tara suddenly realized she didn't recognize her surroundings. The road stretched for miles in either direction, and there were no road signs in sight to help pinpoint her location. She pulled out her phone, only to see there was no cell phone service. The sun was beginning to pass the tree's skyline, and with the dusk, Tara began to panic. He would never believe she had gotten lost, and the last time she was late, she was punished in a way she tried to forget. As she began frantically darting back and forth with her phone in the air, hopeful for a connection, a soft voice called out to her from behind a tree. Tara froze in fear, not knowing what the voice's intent could be. "I've been waiting for you, child," the voice said again. Tara watched as a shadowed figure emerged from the darkness. A crippled, hunched-over elderly woman hobbled towards where Tara remained still. Despite her decrepit and unappealing appearance, the old woman seemed fragile and harmless, and so she decided to speak to her. Hi, my name's Tara. I live off 70th Street, but I think I made a mistake somewhere on my walk home. I'm kind of lost. Is there any way you can point me in the right direction?" The elderly woman smiled, exposing the few rotted teeth she had left. "I assure you, child, it is no mistake you are here. You see, you know what you want most in life, but you are unable to obtain it. You came here because I can give you what you desire." The old woman's voice was icy, which caused Tara to shiver. She couldn't justify it to herself, but she felt uneasy in her presence. Confused by the old woman's response, Tara sought an explanation. "I'm sorry, miss. I don't know what you mean." Shrill and raspy, the old woman explained. "I can see inside your heart, child. I hear your pain every day you walk this road. I have listened to the stories you create inside your head to pretend you have a chance at happiness. I can feel your hatred for who you feel is to blame for your misery. You are here because you can't possibly want something more, and I'm here to give it to you. All you have to do is decide if you are willing to pay the price." Tara's curiosity began to pique, and so she humored the old daft woman. "And what exactly is it that you think I want? And how much is it going to cost me? I don't have a lot of money, so I really don't see where you're headed with this." "You want freedom," the old woman hissed. "You need money. You long for happiness. You desire him dead." Tara stared with an open mouth, dumbfounded by the woman's accuracy. Surely this is all a trick, Tara thought to herself. All general statements. Who wouldn't desire money and happiness? But, wanting to believe, she continued to listen. "I can give you everything you've fantasized about. All I ask in return is in 1 year's time, you allow me permission to enter your body for 2 hours. At this, Tara scoffed. Why had she been nervous about this woman? She was obviously crazy. "Okay," she antagonized. "But how do I know you're telling the truth and can really give me these things?" At that, the woman materialized a goblet full of liquid. She motioned for Tara to come closer. As Tara looked into the goblet, she saw her husband asleep in front of the TV, an empty whiskey bottle at his side. Frightened and intrigued, Tara gazed at the old woman. "You really can change my life? And all I have to do is allow you 2 hours inside my body? 1 year from now?" "That is all, child. Permit me to use your body as a vessel for 2 hours in 1 year, and everything you've ever wanted will come true." Tears filled Tara's eyes as the visions of a better life filled her mind. The concept of relinquishing her body was odd, but after a life of constant disappointment and sorrow, she was willing to agree to more than she was willing to admit. She feared if she questioned the old woman's intent, that the offer would be tarnished or taken away. And so, without much consideration, Tara blurted, "Yes!" A smile began to creep across the old woman's face as she hissed, "And so it is done." Tara turned around to find her door right in front of her. The road had disappeared along with the elderly woman. She began to think she had gotten lost in her imagination, that the whole interaction was a fantasy. She stood at the door, breathing deeply as her heart pounded. Still in a haze, she turned the doorknob and stepped lightly through the dark house. Her blood grew colder with each step towards where her husband sat. And then, in the glow of the TV, there he was. Peaceful, motionless, and not breathing. Tara touched him and jolted at his cold skin. Tears began to flood her eyes as she looked up and thanked the mysterious woman from the road. Finally, Tara was free. A coroner's report ruled Tara's husband's cause of death was a heart attack. The paramedic who answered Tara's emergency call turned out to be an old friend from high school that she had forgotten. It wasn't long before the two began dating. While receiving 2 weeks off from the grocery store to mourn, Tara was approached by a lawyer who informed her that her husband had a life insurance policy which left her with $2 million. Because the death was deemed natural, Tara received the money within a month of her husband's funeral. It all happened so fast, and none of the good fortune made any sense, but she didn't care how surreal it all was. Tara finally had the life she always wanted, the life she felt she deserved. The joy empowered her so much that she soon lost track of time. It seemed like only a blink had passed when the old woman came knocking on her door. Tara was alone the day the old woman returned for her payment. She was so happy from the life she was now living that she greeted the old woman as she would a long-lost friend, embracing her in a warm and genuine hug. "You know, you are a miracle maker. Tara gloated.
I never knew a person could be this happy, and I have you to thank.
The old woman looked Tara in the eye, and through her rotted grin she asked,
Then are you ready to repay me, child?
Lost in her own happiness, Tara smiled back and shook her head yes. She trusted the old woman who had brought her such amazingly good fortune.
Well then, it's time,
the old woman hissed as she grabbed Tara's face and brought it to her own. Tara saw a blinding white flash, and then it was as if nothing had happened. The old woman was no longer in front of her, and it seemed like she had dreamed the entire encounter. That is, until she tried to move. Trapped inside her own body, Tara cried out,
What is this? I thought you would use me as a vessel, that I wouldn't remember any of this. Oh no, child. You will remember every moment I have with you. I can assure you of that. The old woman responded out loud in Tara's voice. Feeling Tara's fear and confusion, the old woman began to explain. For centuries, I have been plagued with the thoughts and emotions of the broken-hearted. Always tormented, always crying out for help, never making a single effort towards helping themselves. Until I come along and offer a solution. A solution that only requires an agreement. 2 hours of their time to receive all of the desires and dreams the bleeding hearts were too lazy to achieve themselves. Not once has any of the disgustingly entitled brats inquired as to how I do what I do, or even why I need to use their body as a vessel. The offer is just blindly accepted, and they greedily enter their new lives unappreciative. Well, these 2 agreed-upon hours are used for harvest. You think you were so tormented and your life was so tragic? Let's see how you fare after this. Tara watched helplessly as her body approached the festively decorated house. Entering the sleeping home, Tara felt as her fingers gripped the handle of the knife taken from the kitchen. The home was dark and quiet, but the old woman glided Tara's body effortlessly to her intended destination. Without making a sound, Tara's body positioned over the woman asleep in her bed, and with a swift motion, Tara's hand slid the knife into the woman's stomach. Piercing screams filled the home, pain and terror emanating from the victim's eyes, and with a flick of the knife to the helpless woman's throat, Tara listened as the wails began to gurgle. The warmth of life faded to cold in Tara's arms as her mouth wrapped around the gaping slit of the woman's throat. She tasted copper as the blood slid down and coated her stomach. Tara's cries and screams of horror could only be heard by one, and in response, she felt her blood-soaked lips curl into a smile. Standing over the mauled woman, shrill and cruel, the old woman began to speak. For every soul I take before its time, I must sacrifice an innocent soul to appease the disregard of death's plan. A soul not promised to him, one destined to a greater eternity. From a darkened corner came a child's whisper. The old woman turned Tara's head so she could see the terrified girl violently crying as she stared at the grotesque figure that was once her mother. You thought you were in hell, but oh how wrong you were. Your laziness to wait for rescue and your selfishness to ignore consequence has cost the life of this young, widowed mother. Look into the eyes of this child and see what real tragedy is. This orphan will live tormented for the rest of her life, and there is nothing that will remove her misery. Although, unlike you, she will try. Remember, you did this. Enjoy your reward, because the cost was immense.
And with a flash of white and a searing pain, Tara collapsed to the ground. Tears streamed down her face as she began to scream, clenching her blood-drenched hands, finally able to express her shock of what she had been forced to do. Tara never heard the police sirens, never felt them as they put her hands in restraints, and she would never remember being taken away from the sacrificed woman and the child she had damned. After a short trial, it wasn't long before she was committed to a mental institution. Despite desperate attempts from people trying to understand why she had committed such an awful act, Tara never spoke to anyone again. It was as if she were trapped inside her mind. But late at night, when the halls were quiet from sleep, Tara could be heard whispering,
I just wanted to be happy.
Dear Abby, we've never met before, so this may seem a bit odd, but I feel this is necessary. My name's Jay, for starters. I work the checkout line at the grocery store up on 67th Street. You know, the one with the parking lot that's way too big for the store itself? Yeah, that one. I'm 24, fairly tall, and have a rather scraggly appearance. You probably wouldn't recognize me if I came up to talk to you. I don't have a very memorable face. I don't really know why I'm telling you all this, to be honest. But this isn't the point of me writing you. I was working late at night yesterday. It was an average day for the most part. Nothing too exciting happened, but you'd be surprised how interesting this job can get at times. I'd been reading some book the guy that worked the counter the shift before me had left. It was some really crappy murder mystery chock full of cliches. Incredibly boring, if you ask me. But it's something to do, I guess? When you showed up, though, my whole night changed. I don't know exactly what it was about you that caught my attention at first, but as soon as I saw you, I got this odd feeling. A weird mix between excitement and terror. That's really the best way I can describe it, at least. I saw you walk into my line, and I quickly composed myself. I'd been slouching down in my chair for a while, since I rarely ever get anyone in my line. It was only when you got closer that I realized what about you had caught my attention. You were absolutely beautiful. You walked up and said, "Hey," and handed me your card. I could tell by the way you were talking and the way you looked that you were very sleep-deprived, though this wasn't surprising considering how late it was. After a second or two of awkward silence, I realized that you'd greeted me. I suddenly forced out a "Hi," in response. I cursed myself out mentally for that one. I sat there for a second, trying to focus. "What's your name?" I said. It's only later that I realize how odd this must have seemed. What kind of grocery bag guy asks what someone's name is? I'm glad I did, though. I remember you said you were named Abigail, but that you go by Abby for short. Abby. It seemed to fit so perfectly. The name seemed to roll off my tongue as I said it back to myself silently. It was like sweet honey. It just felt good as I said it. You seemed to be perplexed when I looked back at you, and I wondered if I'd done something to upset you. "Shouldn't you be packing those?" you said, and pointed to your groceries. Suddenly shocked and embarrassed, I looked up and apologized, then clumsily started shoving groceries into bags as fast as I could. I couldn't believe myself. How stupid could I be? But when I looked up, I realized you were laughing. You're kind of cute, you said. I tried to play it off cool, but I was obviously thrilled. A girl like this thought I was cute? You are too, I said, as I hastily packed the rest of the groceries. As you walked out, you turned around and reached the door and said, "Have a good night." I'm guessing I look pretty stupid writing all this down. You probably still remember it. I mean, it did just happen yesterday. But I went home ecstatic that night, and with all the confidence in the world. I feel like it's almost unreal writing it back here. Anyways, I wanted to write this letter, Abby, to tell you that I love you. I don't know what it was I felt that night. It was some weird mix-up of emotions. But all I know was that even in that small little transaction we had, I felt as if there was something between us. Please, write me back soon. Sincerely, Jay. Dear Abby, it's been a week since my last letter, and I still haven't gotten a response, but that doesn't matter. How have you been? My life's been just as normal as usual. Get up, go to work, go to bed. I live in a really shitty apartment, but I guess that's what you get when you work as a grocery packer. I've thought about you a lot lately, and sometimes wonder if you still remember me. I saw you again today at work. This time, it was at a more reasonable hour, thankfully. I didn't want to bother you to see if you'd approach me on your own. You came to my line again, which made me absolutely thrilled. This time I was less nervous. I was going to act normal no matter what you did or said. I wasn't going to let a girl like you slip through my fingers. As you walked up, you muttered something that was too quiet for me to make out, and waited at the end of the counter for me to finish packing your groceries. This obviously wasn't what I had expected, but it wasn't all too bad. You didn't seem to feel anything at all, actually. I was expecting you to either come up and talk to me or avoid me like the plague, but instead you just walked on through as if I was another stranger. This makes me wonder if you got my last letter. You should check your mailbox more often. There was one moment where I felt something, though. I looked over briefly to see what you were doing, and at the same time, you seemed to look up at me to see how far along I was. Right then, our eyes locked. Only for a second or two, but in those seconds, I saw so much more in you than I had seen last time. I felt as if I had known you for years, like I knew all your intricate feelings and emotions. Did you feel anything like that with me? Shortly after I'd finished packing your bags, you paid and walked out. Obviously, this was a pretty normal process for me, considering I do about 50 times a day, but I had been determined since the night I wrote you that letter, that the next time I saw you, I was going to get more out of it. I kind of screwed that one up. I wasn't satisfied with it. I had to have more. There's a little room in the very back left corner of the grocery store designated for staff. In there, though, I knew they kept all the security footage from the day. All staff are informed of this and the security camera's locations when they're hired. Luckily for me, there is one positioned right next to my counter. I waited until the store closed and everybody left, and then I went in. After flipping through a few of the TV screens, I found the one that was connected to the camera by my counter. I rewinded it until about when I remember you coming in. After a few minutes of scanning, I'd found it. There you were! I paused on the best still shot I could find. I knew the camera wouldn't do you justice, but it was the best I could have for now. Having a longer look at you, I realized how truly perfect you were. Every feature of your body, your hair, your face, your legs, your chest was just perfection. I rewinded the tape to when you'd first come up to my line a few times. I couldn't help myself. My eyes were glued to the screen. After a few minutes of consideration, I popped out the tape and shoved it in my pocket, and then drove home. I knew I wasn't allowed to. I could very well be fired for taking such actions, but I couldn't help myself. I had to have you with me at all times, even if it means me losing my job. Abby, I love you. I love everything about you. I think about you constantly now. Do you feel the same way about me, Abby? I just want us to be together. Forever. Right back soon. Yours truly, Jay. Dear Abby, it's been 3 days and I still haven't gotten a reply. Why don't you want to talk to me? I'm still unsure if you got my last 2 letters. Please tell me if you have. So, I got fired from my job. They found the missing tape. I got a call from the store owner, my boss, at 6 a.m. on Monday and was told to come in immediately. They were having a mandatory all-staff meeting. When I got there, all of the staff was gathered around a small table with the owner at the head of it. Once everyone had arrived, he told us that apparently there had been a minor robbery yesterday. They'd had about $200 worth of stuff taken from them. And the one tape that would have shown who was the culprit was the one I had taken. Just my luck. He told us that no one was going to leave the room until someone confessed. After a few minutes, I finally gave in. I told him everything about how I felt as if me and you had had some kind of connection. After explaining the whole story, the entire room was staring wide-eyed at me. After I finished, I sat there in silence for several seconds. Suddenly, the store owner broke the tension. "Jay, you're fired. Get out of here now and don't come back," he said. I did as I was told and got out of there as fast as I could. That stupid prick, he's always treated me like shit. He's been on my case since the day I got the job. I swear, he's just been waiting for me to do one little thing that could justify firing me. And the one time I slip up, he finds out. Why didn't he understand, though? Doesn't he get that you and I are meant for each other? Any rational man would have understood. Anyone put in my situation would have done that, right? I've been searching you up a lot lately. With no job, I have all the time in the world to spend learning about you. Do you know how much you can find out about someone with just a first name and a town of residence? I found out your last name's Merritt. What a beautiful name, Abby Merritt. I can't help but say it aloud whenever I think about you. I also found out you're 24, and you only live a mile away from me. I drove down to your apartment complex today. It looks very nice. Much nicer than where I live. I asked to see you multiple times, but I was told that you weren't there every time. I felt more and more discouraged every time, but I was determined to see you again. After a few hours of asking, I decided to stay back in the parking lot for a while, waiting for you to come back. And after many hours of waiting, you did. It was late at night, around 10, I believe? I saw you pull up in your car and get out. I felt a sudden rush of warmth seeing your face again. I know I have the security camera tape to look at, but it doesn't compare to seeing you in real life. I made sure to record it for later when I was at home, this time with a much higher quality camera. I wanted to capture as much detail as possible. I didn't know the next time I would see you, and the security tape wasn't enough for me anymore. I asked the woman at the front desk multiple times what your room number was, but she refused to tell me. She thought I was some sort of creep. See, Abby, these people don't understand us. They don't understand what we feel for each other. I ended up waiting in the parking lot a little while longer until someone came out. After talking with him for a bit, he told me what your apartment number was. He didn't want to talk at first, but I made him. You'd be surprised what you can make people tell you when you're holding a knife to their chest. Don't worry, I didn't hurt him too bad. But we can't have someone interfering with us. Don't you agree, Abby? I'm sick of all these people trying to keep us apart. I ended up watching you from the parking lot for a while. Once I found out your room number and how the rooms in this complex were organized, it wasn't too hard to locate it. You should be more careful about shutting your blinds, you know. I was easily able to watch you from the parking lot. I can't get you out of my head anymore, ever. All I do is watch that video I took of you over and over. Abby, I want to be with you forever. I want to wake up in the morning to see you next to me in bed. I cannot wait
Until the next time I see you again. Love, Jay. Dear Abby, I have some really exciting news, Abby. I'm moving in with you. Aren't you excited? We can spend hours and hours and hours together. It'll be just perfect. Let me explain. My job paid just enough so I could make rent and pay for food every week. Because of this, I had little to no money in savings, nowhere near enough to last a very long time. When you take that money flow away, it doesn't take very much time until you have nothing left. I was able to get by for a few days, but just today I got evicted. This could actually be better than I had originally thought. I wouldn't be surprised if that guy that gave me your room number has been able to contact the police by now. This way, they won't be able to find me, and we get to spend all the time in the world together. It's perfect, isn't it? I made sure to bring all my tapes and photos I've taken with me, though. And my cameras, of course. You should really tell whoever's managing your apartment complex to get better staff. I was able to get by security easily. I went up to your room and knocked on the door, but I got no answer. So I decided to get in by other means. After scanning the footage I took from last night over a few times, I noticed that you have a ventilation shaft in the corner of your room. Not surprising, considering how hot it can get in the summer there. I figured there had to be some kind of maintenance hatch that I could get in through. After a few minutes of looking around, I found a door at the end of your hall that seemed to be some kind of staff room, and luckily, there was a way into the vents there. I crawled through them until I got to your room. It was very cramped and hard to move around in, but I managed. When I got there, though, I felt a rush of success. I figured, since the lights were out and I couldn't see you, that you weren't home. But I'm patient. I scanned every part of your room, trying to memorize all the intricate details. Your scent overwhelmed me as I sat there. I had caught it briefly during the 2 times I saw you at the store, but never this strong. It was mesmerizing. I couldn't quite place my finger on it, but it reminded me of something. It was almost like peaches. I sat there hunched over for a few hours, though I've taught myself to be extremely patient. I can sit completely motionless for hours at a time, not moving a muscle. No one was going to notice me. Then you finally got home. I felt a wide smile form on my face the second I heard the door open. Ah, there you were, my love. Of course you took no notice to my presence. The light in your room seemed to be angled perfectly, so you couldn't see anything in the vent after the first few inches. I tried to contain my excitement, but I started breathing very heavily. I tried to cover it up as best I could, but it was hard. You suddenly looked right at the vent. I went completely silent. After a few seconds, though, you seemed to lose interest. This made me smile. This was the perfect spot. I could tell I had startled you, though. All throughout the night you were turning over in your sleep to look at the vent. People seem to have a sense for when they're being watched. It can send them into complete panic. Don't try to fake it, Abby. I can tell when someone's awake. When someone's truly scared, sleep becomes impossible. Why are you so scared, anyways? It's just me. Why would I scare you? You do love me, right? You know I love you. I'm looking forward to spending every day with you now, Abby. Write back if you can. Love, Jay. Dear Abby, I saw you wake up this morning. I didn't sleep a wink last night. You were so enthralling. I spent the whole night watching you. I couldn't help it. Any time I tried to look away, my eyes seemed to be drawn back a few seconds later. You look even more amazing when you're sleeping, you know. You'd be surprised how much you can learn about a person's personality by watching them sleep. I was tempted to get out of the vent to get a better view of you multiple times in the night, but I resisted the urge. I couldn't have you figuring out I'm here. Not yet, at least. You seem to spend a lot of your time in the bathroom in the morning. I assumed you were taking a shower or putting on makeup. Why would you do that, Abby? Anything you could do to change the way you naturally look would only cover up your true beauty. Why would you want to do that?
Don't you want the whole world to see what I see in you? You left shortly after to work, or at least that's what I assumed. After careful consideration, I decided to leave the vent. I slid my hand through one of the slits and felt around for one of the bolts. The surface of the vent was very smooth, which made them very easy to find. I grabbed onto one and twisted as hard as I could, and finally was able to pop it off. I did this with all the other bolts and finally removed the grating. The first thing I did was go over to your bathroom. I quickly disposed of everything I could find that you could use to mask your face. That stuff disgusts me. This way, everyone will get to see how you truly are. I also found something else in there. Your hairbrush. I grabbed it and brought it up close to my face to examine it. It was a dull blue with a very thick rounded handle. But that wasn't what interested me. The hairs. That's what made me so interested. I took a good few minutes to pull every one of them I could see out and line them up on your counter. I counted them. I'd gotten 59. This pleased me greatly. I quickly scooped them up and put them in my pocket. I spent the rest of the day going through your stuff to learn more about you, your interests and such. I take it you're a big movie fan, Abby? I found your collection in the back of your closet. I have to say it was quite impressive. I found something else in there that made me mad. A picture of you with another man. It disgusted me just looking at him, holding you like he owned you. I'm the only one that can have you, Abby. No one else! At about 8:30, I considered starting to get back into the vent, since that's usually about when you get back from work. Then I had another idea. I looked at your bed. The blankets hung low enough to the floor that you couldn't see underneath the bed unless they were lifted up. I first screwed the vent grating back on and slowly slid under with a smile on my face. I waited for you to get home. When you finally came in, you looked completely pale, and I noticed someone else came in behind you. They were talking to you about hearing noises coming from your room throughout the day. I mentally yelled at myself. I would need to be more careful from now on. Going under the bed had been a good idea, though, since obviously your first thought was to check the vent. You thanked the person, and they left. Finally, you and I were alone. I sat there in silence until you went to bed. It seemed to be an eternity before you did. I wanted to get a closer look at you tonight, and this was my chance. You got in bed and turned off the lights. I was cautious, though. I waited for hours to make sure you were asleep, and when I was sure you were, I slowly slid out from under the bed, and I saw you there. You looked absolutely stunning. Every curve of your body was perfect. Every little detail was beautiful. I was in awe just looking at you. I reached out my hand, and I started to stroke your face. It was like soft silk. Your beauty was overwhelming. I felt pure ecstasy. Everything about you was perfect. Suddenly you seemed to turn and started to wake up. Horrified, I quickly slid back under the bed, trying to be as quiet as possible. A few seconds I saw you get out of bed and look around. I could sense your fear, even without looking at you. You should feel calm with me around you, Abby. I'll protect you, Abby. No one will ever touch you but me. I'd kill someone for you, Abby. I made sure to pay attention today. You didn't bring in my letter from yesterday or any mail at all, so you must just not check your mailbox. I'm going to change that, though. I'm going to leave this one on your desk tomorrow. Oh, I forgot to mention. I'm making something special for you. Check in your closet after you read this. Yours forever, Jay. Dear Abby, I spent more time today working on the surprise while you were at work. You're really gonna love it, Abby. I've put a lot of work into it, you know. I spent a few hours today putting the finishing touches on it, and I think it's finally ready for you to see. You got home at around 8:30 again, and saw the letter laying on your desk almost immediately. I started to smile as I saw you open it, waiting to see your reaction. It was really quite interesting watching your face. I could see all your different emotions and thoughts. You seemed to be confused at first, then shocked, Then, horrified, you started to shake violently, and I saw that you were starting to cry. Do you not like me, Abby? Why were you crying? Don't you love me? Don't you love me, Abby? Everything after that was a blur. You looked over to the closet while still sobbing. You seemed to be contemplating whether to open it or not. Instead, you ran past it and out the door. When you came back, you had all my letters in your hand and started going through them. At some point, you seemed to break down and curl up on the floor, tears still rolling down your face. I could tell you were desperately trying to say something, anything, but you were too paralyzed in fear. After about 10 minutes, I saw you look under the bed, in the vent, anywhere I could be. You see though, Abby, I'm smarter than that. I knew you'd look in those places. I found a better place after I finished your surprise. You'll never find me here. No one will. Isn't it great? I can watch you forever and ever, and there's nothing you or anyone else can do about it. You hadn't found your surprise yet, though, Abby. And I could tell you were still thinking about it. I saw you look over to your closet. I knew you wanted to open it, but at the same time, you were nervous. What was going to be in it? What would you find? This couldn't last forever, though. You and I both knew that. I watched you slowly walk over to your closet, fumbling with the handle, trying to get a firm grasp on it. Suddenly, you flung the doors open and saw it. It was a scrapbook of me and you. I saw you flipping through the pages. You seemed to be shocked. Do you not like it, Abby? I got pictures of you and I when you weren't looking, pictures of you sleeping, pictures of you at your computer. I'd scattered the hairs I collected throughout it, along with the pictures of couples together. Of course, with our faces on them, though. I got that picture of you with the other guy and put it at the very back. Except I didn't leave it like it normally was. I scratched that little prick's face off. I hate him so much. If I knew who he was, I would hunt him down and make him suffer. Don't you get it, Abby? No one can have you but me. Me and you are meant for each other. No one else. I watched you sob for another 30 minutes, and then get up and run out of your apartment. Shortly after, you came back with multiple policemen. This shocked me. Did you not like the surprise, Abby? Why would you bring these people into our room? They'll never find where I am, but if they did, it could ruin everything. All my work from the last few weeks would be for nothing. You wouldn't want that, right, Abby? I'm exhausted from today's work, and as much as I love you, I need sleep, Abby. Have a good night. I love you. Love, Jay. Dear Abby, do you see what you've done, Abby? Do you see what you've done? I woke up at 8 a.m. to see you frantically packing your bags. I was a little confused at first, but then I understood. You were leaving me. You don't love me. You don't love me. How could you do this to me, Abby? You were the only thing I wanted in life. I had nothing else to live for, but when I first met you, I saw a shimmer of hope. I thought that I'd finally have reason to wake up in the morning and go on with my shitty life. And then you went and threw that away. How could you do this to me, Abby? A few seconds after you left your room, I got out of my hiding spot and followed behind you. I saw you throw your bags in the back and then get in your car and start it. I wasn't going to let you get away though, Abby. I would never let that happen. I ran as fast as I could to your car and smashed out the window and dragged you out. Did you really think you could get away from me, Abby? I had to hit you over the head to knock you out. You were making too much noise. Someone else, someone that doesn't understand, could have seen that and ruined everything. Well, I had a plan. for if you reacted like this. I drove out to the storage unit at the end of town. I'd reserved a slot the day I decided to move in with you. I drove up and unlocked it. I grabbed you and carried you inside it with me. It had only been a few minutes, so you were still unconscious. I made sure to check through your pockets to make sure you didn't have your phone with you. I set you down at the very back of the small room. Then I got in and lowered the door. I called the owner of the storage unit and told him that I had visited my lot the other day and forgotten to lock it, and asked him if he would mind locking it for me. Of course, he said yes, and I hung up. I then threw the phone on the ground and stomped it to make sure that it'd never work again. Shortly later, I heard the owner come up and lock the door. About an hour later, I saw you start to get up. I first heard a very faint grunt, then I saw your legs start to move. Shortly after, you were fully awake. When you saw my face, you started to scream, which then subsided to a whine and then to a whimper. That's when you saw it. The one other thing in the room. My knife. It was obvious why it was there, and after a second or two of realization, you jumped and grabbed it. I looked you dead in the eyes and said, "Abby, I love you." And then I felt the searing pain of the knife being driven into my side. I felt it being pulled out and jabbed back in with great force. I could feel it go in each time, like a fire burning a hole through my chest. I fell to the floor, laughing while coughing up blood. I saw you back away, trembling, and sit back down in the corner. And now, as I sit here in the puddle of my own blood writing this, I wonder how you'll go out. Will you use the knife to take your own life? Or will you let starvation take you? Either way, we'll be together in death, Abby. Together from the day I saw you till the day we both died. Just as I wanted it. And as you sit there crying, I can tell you, you've come to this realization. Abby, this is all I ever wanted. And for that, I have to say, thank you. Love, Jay.
This isn't where I pictured myself. When Felicia told me that we were going out for drinks, I thought we were going to a small bar near home. It's quiet, sure, but that's all I need for some nights, you know? It beats sitting around the table in the back corner of some downtown dance club.
Excuse me?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm waiting for my...
Can I buy you a drink?
I'm sorry. No. I'm here with my friend.
Saw her sitting. She's an easy mark. She distanced herself from every other person in this place. She wasn't dancing, she wasn't drinking. She's just sitting alone, watching everyone else. Dark hair, glasses. Gorgeous body, but hidden behind conservative clothes. Very easy mark. I'm sorry, I didn't mean... I saw you were sitting alone,
No, wait.
Gotcha.
Sorry, it's just that I was here with a friend, and I guess she kind of wandered off. I guess I am here alone.
So, drink?
I'm not sure what it was about this one. He seemed different from the rest. There was some kind of mysterious charm to him. He was tall and fit, but plenty of the guys here were. There was something different about him, though. Something I could almost smell. Almost taste. I suppose it couldn't hurt. He walked away into the dancing crowd, and walked past Felicia. I saw her dancing, grinding on those two new guys on the dance floor for the briefest moment before the sea of people became too thick and she disappeared. Felicia and I have been going out every night for the longest time together. We'd become accustomed to doing things a certain way, and this was so different. This was never my element, and she knew that. I suppose it's nice that I can still find someone like this, though.
Two of my usual, and load one of them down. Thanks.
She was making this too easy. You add your friendly smile and nod, and she invites me to sit down with her. I take the drinks back with me, careful not to spill a drop as I weave my way through the dancers, spasming in time with the techno club music, and back to the girl I'd been speaking to. I guess I should ask her for her name, shouldn't I? David. I'm David.
Oh, I'm Amelia.
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you, Amelia.
Yeah, same. This is awkward. Why is this awkward? I've talked to guys like this before. They've bought me drinks, we've laughed. Why is this so different? There's something different about him, and it's making me nervous.
You can loosen up. I'm not gonna bite.
No promises from me. That was a bad joke. I'm sorry. I just feel awkward. I came here with my friend Felicia, and I really don't do dance clubs. But she does, and now she's off having fun while I sit here being awkward with you, who's clearly confused. So I'm just gonna drink now.
It's fine. Really, it's okay.
She's talking, and I only picked up a little of what she said. I'm more tracing her jawline in a perfect curve and makes around her neck. It could be easily cut. So easily, and the skin in her throat would just pull away. I need her to trust me.
Felicia, is that the blonde in the red dress?
Yeah.
The, the one dancing on the two guys?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. We'll show her up.
What do you mean?
Here. Finish up your drink and come with me.
Okay. He led me by the hand onto the dance floor. His hands were strong, like he'd been working with them a lot. I had traced my eyes from his hand to his wrist, and to the muscles that wrapped around his arm. I'm not gonna lie, I was a bit excited to see what he was planning.
I wrap my arms around her and begin moving to the beat of the music. She's so resistant. I was hoping the drink would have loosened her up way more by now. She does start to get the hang of things after a bit, and moves her body with mine. I grip her a bit tighter and pull her closer against me.
What am I doing? I feel so strange with this one. But I can't seem to stop myself. He pulls me in closer, and there's this beautiful scent that flows from him. I turn my head to allow my senses better access, and my ear presses against his chest. I can hear his heartbeat. It's such a strong heartbeat.
There we go. She's giving in, and soon she'll be completely ready. Oh, I have so many sharp old toys for you at home, Amelia. So many things I can do to that smooth, pale skin.
We danced for what seemed like an eternity, and I still wanted it to last longer. This one, David's heartbeat, his lips, his neck, they were driving me wild. The whole world was left behind when I was with him. I couldn't remember Felicia, the club, or the awkwardness. That's why it probably made so much sense to say yes when he asked me if I wanted to go home with him.
We walked out of the dance club towards my car.
Amelia stumbled into me, and I couldn't tell if it was purposeful or the alcohol taking the full effect on her body. Either way, I wrapped my arm around her and caught her. I held her up on her feet. She graciously wrapped her arms around my neck, laughing the whole time.
The smell I was picking up from David on the dance floor was still swimming around in the inside of my nose, and the sound of his heart pounding was all I could hear. I'm so embarrassed. How I lost control and stumbled. But as he was almost carrying me to his car, my arms around his neck, I could push my head against his chest and listen to the beat of his heart. I could almost feel it against my cheek.
I opened the door for her to the passenger side of my car. I may as well have been gentlemanly as I can for now. She doesn't have much longer from here, and she almost fell into the seat, still laughing. I couldn't help but smile back at her. I rushed back around to the driver's side and hopped in as well. The keys jingled from my pocket, and I placed them in the ignition. And I saw her looking at me. She had pulled off her glasses. She really was gorgeous. I was almost regretful for what I was going to do to that face. And from the looks of it, she wasn't going to let us get home first.
What am I doing? I'm not this kind of a person. I don't just leave with someone like this. But whatever was going on with this one, it was driving me wild. I needed it now. I couldn't hold back any longer. I leaned in closer to David and my hand reached behind his head. Just a little taste.
She pressed her lips against mine. That was a bit rougher than I thought she was capable of. When girls go crazy like this, it's nearly enough to get me going. Can't get distracted. I push her back into her seat, never pulling my lips from hers. My hand going all over her body, her leg, and now reaching for the glove compartment.
I can't help but explore his body with my hands. I can feel his pulse racing. Am I doing that to him? I hope I am. The feeling of his heartbeat and that intoxicating smell is all I can think of. This one has cast a spell on me somehow, but I was loving it, and I needed to taste more of it.
The glove box fell open easily and silently, just as I designed it to, and the hunting knife. I'm so glad it was clean from the last time. It got so messy last time. I broke our kiss for just a moment to find and wrap my fingers around the handle.
No, don't break away. I need to taste more. I need it.
I angle the tip of the blade towards her stomach.
Oh, please, I need this.
I can feel her mouth tracing my neck.
This is what I've been waiting for.
She doesn't see a thing.
This is what I've been wanting.
She's as good as...
Oh God, he tastes amazing. The feel of his pulse, pushing up gush after gush of blood from his arteries into my mouth. Oh, I couldn't have waited any longer for this. His blood is so healthy, so rich, so sweet. I push him back into the driver's seat and place my hand against his chest. His heartbeat was so strong. I knew he would be perfect, and I'm so sorry. This isn't the kind of person I am. I'm courteous. I always share with Felicia. We always wait till they're home and comfortable before we drain them. But David, sweet, delicious, poorly forgotten David, you were the perfect mark